All right, everyone. It has been only a few hours since I posted my video about rotation. Only a few hours. And my goodness, do all of you have a lot to say. And I totally get it. This is one of the biggest changes, if not the biggest change to the format of the game when it comes out next year. And there is a very big division in the perspective of this rotation. Not a division in one side completely disagrees with the other and they're fighting, but there are a good chunk of you that are looking forward to rotation, and there are a good chunk of you that are really disappointed with the news of rotation. And so it's really difficult because, as I mentioned in my previous video, I would like to basically share as much as I can with FFG because I am one of the few people that isn't bound by their community creator sponsored whatever guidelines, whatever it is, okay? But I can't necessarily advocate for either side. I certainly, as me personally, lean a little bit towards excitement for the new rotation. But because I'm in a different position than a lot of you are who are not excited for rotation. And as I mentioned, there are certainly pros and cons. So here's what I have, I guess, resolved to do. We are going to provide at least what I believe to be a reasonable solution to the majority of what people were saying that are bad and the majority of what people were saying about the good. So here's the good, or I guess maybe we should start with the bad, because who wants to end on a bad note, or rather what should be changed. The biggest thing that I saw was too soon. And not just in terms of too soon, like, hey, the rotation's coming too soon, but the fact that the sets between rotation is too soon. And that's something that is pretty consistent throughout. Every year, 3 sets being rotated out, and, well, in general, 2 years for a set to be legal in a specific format is a little bit too quick, is what the vast majority of the negatives are. To be honest, while there is a good chunk of you basically explaining how you hate to see the cards that you enjoy, the cards that you bought into, be something that basically rotates out in potentially a format that you would prefer to play, it is very significant that it's just too soon. And I think this comment, for example, is I hoped that set 3 would stay longer, and I'm fine with rotation. That's it. I just hoped that a set would stay longer. And that's a pretty reasonable, middle of the pack, very undivisive statement. Rotation is fine. Just give us a little bit more time to play with some of these cards. Magic, from what I'm used to, had a little bit longer of a rotation period, but even more recently, they have adapted their rotation period to be a very long time format, to where it rotates not nearly as harsh as we are talking about with Star Wars Unlimited. I'll say that not only is the time pretty quick, but also the fact that there are not as many sets within that format also adds to the fact that that rotation is too quick, right? If there are more cards, there are more different things to go ahead and interact with. But the fact that it's a year out in terms of, well, the format's going to drastically change, and 3 sets will be rotating every 2 years, well, be in the game loop for 2 years and then rotate out, is just too much. And this is something that, well, we expected. We expected rotation. We knew it was coming. I mentioned it in multiple videos. FFG mentioned it basically since really early on. I don't even remember when they first mentioned it, but I remember it being as soon as like set one, I had heard mention of rotation. And there are always going to be people that dislike rotation, and that is totally fine to dislike. Something that, well, I'd rather just have all my cards be valuable in every format or in the format I initially played. But seeing as they initially started with the rotation being introduced with Star Wars Unlimited, I think the compromise would be to do a little bit more of a middle ground where maybe we extend the time period for sets to be rotated out. And this is something that, well, not only was mentioned about it's too fast, I would like to go ahead and play with my cards longer, but also people are accusing FFG of being greedy and that they have zero loyalty and that they're repeating themselves with past mistakes in other games. And I personally dislike that type of line because I don't really see, even with rotation, how that is necessarily true, especially with a new format. But there is a clear reasoning for it, and that is something that is worth looking at, which is maybe this is too soon. Maybe the players aren't as interested in this as maybe they were expecting. As I say that, we have a couple of comments here that perfectly represent what I was talking about. It's over. Rip to Star Wars Unlimited. It had a good run, but a massive ban list ain't good. FFG are doing this all wrong. These decisions are based on greed and show no loyalty to a committed fan base. While they talk about MTG, which is, well, literally what I had talked about earlier, about how they've extended their standard legal options way longer, typically 3 years. This is something that is very common in people who dislike the rotation. What about the good? Okay, so let's say we extend out the rotation period. Let's say FFG decides, okay, let's make it a 3-year time span where the premier sets and the overall card pool of premier is a little bit more expansive and you get more time with those cards. Okay. What about the good? Well, one thing, whether it's, I guess, good or not, is that it was expected. This is something that happens in most TCGs. I have not played all of them, so I can't say all, but all the ones that I've played all have some sort of rotation. And they also have, and this is really important, a format to play all those cards you previously purchased. And that is happening. For those of you that dislike rotation, there is a format for you. This is the Eternal format. It's all about playing a bunch of your cards that are no longer legal in the other format. And supposedly, well, I guess you say objectively, when you are making that internal format, you are basically making the premiere of what you wanted exist forever. Here is the reality. There may be less popularity for one format or the other, and one format may cause the other format some trouble in terms of being able to start events, which I think is what people are more worried about. On the other hand, it could turn into like a Magic scenario where you have modern, you have vintage, you have legacy, you have standard, you have pioneer, you have a million different formats. That's way too many for me. I do not play all formats of Magic very frequently, but I do try to play a couple different ones. More standard and modern, which is basically what this is going to be. You have a standard, which is more recent sets, and modern, which expands past and includes a majority of the card pool. Now, for me, I actually prefer modern generally in Magic because of the expansive card pool. And that is a good thing. We're going to have a secondary format for those of you that are interested in still playing your cards. And ideally, we'll have multiple different events starting and multiple different tournaments to watch, which would be way more exciting because then we could talk about both formats and talk about the overall health in either format and the overall balancing of the game. And, well, all cards that you purchase still retain value and purpose. Add to the fact that, what did we talk about for the last couple of weeks? Han, the meta being unbalanced, things like that a lot of people are pretty adamant about. I've consistently said that I think Han is not worthy of a ban. I don't think that he is extremely big of a problem, but he definitely is the most dominant leader, and he definitely is, well, reaching some of the things that FFG mentioned that are worth a ban in their eyes. But the meta shakeups, the rotation, absolutely handles not just if a leader is bannable, but more importantly, the stale aspect of a meta. The unfun Han yellows that are out there. Not just because they're strong, but because the gameplay pattern is unfun. All of those cards are going to rotate out and refresh the meta. And so that is a pro, generally speaking, for most people, because the meta changes up and because you're not fighting all the same decks. Now, with that, as we mentioned earlier, cards that you previously purchased and were using these formats may not be legal, and that is a negative, but the overall experience of the meta and competitive integrity has improved, which is a positive. And so I think, generally speaking, the overall rotation, the idea of it, is a good one. And I don't really see how trading card games and Star Wars Unlimited especially can even survive if they don't do this, if they don't do a rotation. However, there is a lot of validity in saying maybe we should extend the rotation period, or maybe we should reduce the amount of sets that rotate or change that. How the rotation was implemented may and should probably be a little bit modified with the community's perspective in mind. If this is as, well, I guess you could say divisive as at least my comment section and what I'm seeing so far is. But let me know what you think in the comment section down below. Obviously, compromise by definition is no one gets what they actually want. But seeing as FFG is going to do rotation, and we knew that from set 1, that was the plan. So the expected rotation will come eventually. Maybe it should be a little bit longer per rotation period. But obviously, there are so many different factors, and I'm sure FFG has a plan, and I'm sure that they have statistics, and I'm sure that the community has a different plan, and I'm sure that I have a different plan, and everyone here probably has a different plan on what they want. At the end of the day, I just hope that whatever is decided is best for the game, regardless of my personal opinion. I like to see this game succeed, and I think rotation generally is going to help this game succeed. It's just a matter of doing it right. And is this the right way? Honestly, I couldn't tell you. I really couldn't, because I spend most of my time playing online, and so a lot of the cons that are involved with rotation don't really apply to me, because I'm playing on Carabas, because I'm playing on Tabletop Simulator, because I oftentimes draft versus buying a bunch of packs. It's hard for me to say, oh, I really, really wish my cards had more value and I could stick with the decks that I had built and all that stuff, because I'm just more excited about playing with all the cards. And you all have seen that across all my videos. And at the end of the day, I just want to be excited about the game, and I want to be excited about everything that's in our future. And I hope that we could reach that as a community with rotation. But FFG, if you're listening, which you probably are, to be honest, but who knows if they're going to do anything about it, maybe take a look at the community and see if there's something that we can make it so everyone is a little bit more happy. We'll see. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you all for the next one.